Welcome back. You are on the line with Juan Roque and the Rhino Ryan Knowles, and we are going to be previewing the game against Cal this weekend, Rhino.
Yep.
Of course, ASU is going to have to travel up to Berkeley, a place that they really don't do too well. 50-17 in 2010,
there
and
since 1997.
since 1997. That's the year after we left.
Your NFL rookie year.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Don't remind me. That's when I became ACL-less.
Oh geez.
But as of course ASU takes that travel up to Berkeley, let's preview the Bear offense, because Rhino, this is an offense that has a lot of talent. You talked about this before the show. Mm-hmm. They got some players. They got Keenan Allen, Zach Maynard's brother, Zach Maynard at quarterback, and let's talk about some of these skill guys, because they got talent, but they just haven't been able to put the oomph in that talent this season.
Yeah, and I mean they got a lot of dynamic playmakers. I mean, we saw it last year. We watched Cal, really take it to ASU in that season finale at Sun Devil Stadium last year.
The final coffin,
yeah,
indeed.
Exactly. And I mean, they got three very good running backs and a lot of talent in the receiving core. But it really starts and ends with their quarterback Zach Maynard. Of course, the Buffalo transfer, the former option quarterback. He's fast. He's effective. He's effective on the run. He's dangerous when he gets outside the pocket. He can run. He can throw. I mean, we saw it last year. He threw for 237 yards and a touchdown, and also ran for another 40 yards and rushed for a score against ASU in that game last year.
Yeah, very uninspired by ASU's defense in that game.
Them, but he's a bit inconsistent. I mean, he's only thrown at about a 60% clip this year, which is very middle of the road. He's a little bit mistake prone. He's thrown as many touchdowns as he has interceptions this year. 927 yards rushing. But he gets it. He's best when he gets out on the run. And if you can keep him bottled up and contained, make him a pocket passer, make him a one-dimensional quarterback, he's prone to mistakes.
Right. See, now option quarterbacks tend to want to run the ball.
Yeah,
they want to make plays with their feet, not with their arm.
He doesn't throw the best deep ball. So, they like to go a lot of short, intermediate
Are they
stuff,
forcing the issue with this guy, Rhino? Because we see that we talked about these same things last season.
Well, they don't
of course,
really
he torched us in that game.
Yeah, and they don't really,
but at the same time, it's a year later.
Jeff
and Tedford's on the hot seat.
And Jeff Tedford, maybe he doesn't have another option at quarterback
That's
right
true
now.
too.
I mean, guys take time to develop, especially in his system. I mean, he's a quarterback guru. Definitely.
Coach Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, coached a lot of different guys. Aaron Rodgers was his first NFL success. But he coached David Carr, he coached Joey Harrington, Akili Smith.
He's a quarterback guy.
But yeah, he's very much a quarterback guy, and he just hasn't been able to bring all that skill as a quarterback and not just an athlete out of Zach Maynard just yet. But Maynard's very good passer, and they're a run first team. I mean, not just Maynard. Like I talked about those three running backs. E.C. Sofeli, I'm probably butchering his name a little bit, but he's running for 228 yards and a touchdown this year, averaging almost 5 yards a carry. Rushed for over 1,300 yards last year, so a lot of talent there. Yeah, exactly. C.J. Anderson has got 164 yards on this year. He burned ASU last year, scored 3 touchdowns in that game at Sun Devil Stadium, and then the one guy, the home run threat, Brendan Bigelow. Only 10,
you talked about him.
Only 10 carries on the year, over 200 yards. That's a 20-yard average he's got to go along with a couple touchdowns. And then, of course, Keenan Allen. This guy's probably going to be an All-American. 29 receptions, 309 yards. He's got a touchdown. He's also got a rushing touchdown, so they like to move him around a lot, give him the ball.
Yeah, he's their guy.
On fly sweeps in different ways. So, and then you also throw in a couple of very talented freshmen in Bryce Treggs and Chris Harper. They combined for 26 receptions, 337 yards, and 3 touchdowns. They're that's an outstanding receiving core. They have a little bit young outside of Keenan Allen, but still a lot of talent nonetheless. And if Maynard can be accurate and get the ball out to them and put them in a position to make plays, they're a dangerous group.
Right, but they also have to be blocked for. And
yeah, exactly.
That's, of course, going to be on the offensive line. And this is a group, Rhino, that I've looked at them up and down, and I have to be honest with you when I say I'm not very impressed with what I'm seeing. You got Tyler Rigsby and Jordan Rigsby, they're brothers. Tyler's a senior. His brother's a freshman. Tyler is in his first year starting all the way as a senior. So this is a guy who has not played a lot. And, of course, his brother hasn't played a lot. And then on the other side of the line, on the right tackle, they got Bill Tyndall. He's 6'4", 285 pounds. So he's a big guy. But he's just not someone who's just a world beater. And they also got Chris Adcock. I was about to say Ad-Rock from the Beastie Boys, but Chris Adcock, of course, also another big guy, he's 6'3", 300 pounds. So they got size in there, Rhino, but they don't have experience. This is not a group of guys that has played a lot of football games together. Of course, the premier member of the group is Brian Schwenke. At 6'4", 300 pounds, he's definitely All-American type material. But he played at guard last year.
Yeah, he's a center.
And he's a center now.
Yeah.
So, to me, that's the perfect storm when they're going to come up against a team like ASU who loves to rush the passer. They love to move up front. I don't know how these guys can really control the line of scrimmage based on what I saw, what they did against Utah, who was a better offensive line than Cal's was.
That. That's right. We talked about that before the game. And, this is kind of where you like to have a running quarterback in Zach Maynard who can get outside the pocket.
Right.
Maybe don't need.
But he's going to be running for his life.
Offensive line. He might be running for his life a few times.
I don't see how they're going to block them.
If ASU can keep contain on Maynard, they might be able to get good penetration with their front 3 or 4. We saw them do that with Will Sutton and Carl Bradford against Utah's front. They didn't blitz a ton against Utah. So, if they can expose that offensive line and control that run game and make Maynard, get outside the pocket,
start making plays
downfield. We talked about his, how mistake prone he's been. So, it's very possible they can control this game.
I think if I'm on that defensive staff right now, I'm licking my chops and I'm going to be blitzing every flipping play to get Zach Maynard on his heels. Like you said, make him beat you. Mm-hmm. I'm excited to see this game. I think this is a game where our defense can definitely do something and make a statement compared to what happened last season when they just got embarrassed at home. After Thanksgiving, just a horrific loss. Well, we're definitely going to see that on Saturday. When we come back, we're going to be talking about key matchups, folks. That's going to do it for this segment. Please don't go away. Join us for our next segment as we get into who's the important matchups in this game that's coming up. And we'll be right back. Welcome back. You are on the line. I'm Juan Roque with my partner in crime, my brother, the Rhino, Ryan Knowles, and getting into the key matchups this week, Rhino, because if you look up and down on these rosters, like we talked about in previewing Cal's offense, they do got some holes in there. They do got some areas that can be exposed. And in my opinion, one of the biggest matchups in this game is going to be Will Sutton against those two guards, Rigsby and Adcock. I think that the way he played last week against Utah, the way he played against Mizzou, this is a guy who's on the upswing. And each week he's playing with a lot more passion, a lot more fire. And if I'm Cal's offensive line coach, I got to be shaking in my shoes when I see Will Sutton lining across two guards, one who's a freshman, the other one is a sophomore. None of them have played a lot.
And a converted, and then between them you got a converted guard with not a whole lot of experience at center.
Right, exactly.
So, Will Sutton,
that could be a disaster.
He's playing with a lot of confidence right now, and Brandon McGee kind of joked about it in the post-game press conference. He just I just sit back, I just watch him make plays because that's all he does right now is make plays.
He was in the backfield all the time against Utah. He
terrorized John Hayes and John White in that.
He should have had way more sacks because he was in the backfield constantly.
Yeah, exactly.
And another big matchup I think is going to be Tyler Rigsby and Bill Tyndall. How are they going to handle Carl Bradford? How are they going to handle Junior Laney? How are they going to handle Devon Coleman?
Yeah, exactly.
I think this is a perfect storm coming together for this defensive line to come out and dominate the opponent. I really do believe that if they come into this game with a purpose, and it's going to be an afternoon game. It's going to be nice and cool up there in Berkeley.
Yep.
Usually, Pacific Northwest, I remember going up there, you feel great after playing in the heat and being in the environments they were in. So these guys are going to feel great. I'm sure they're going to want to pin their ears back, and those are my two key matchups. It's going to be Onyeli, Coleman, and Bradford against the tackles. Will Sutton against their guards. Rhino, I think this game could get ugly in a hurry.
Those are definitely key, but at the same time, if the offensive line is able to contain some of those players and can create some matchup problems and allow Zach Maynard to make plays, it's going to be on those linebackers to keep Maynard contained, and that's my big matchup. Is Zach Maynard against ASU's linebackers, and the unit has not faced a quarterback with the speed of Maynard. They might have had they faced James Franklin or Nate Shieldhouse.
Right.
But you and I were talking about.
We talked about that the first week that they're facing a starter.
This is a true number one quarterback that they're facing. So they'll need to. They can't be over pursuing. They'll need to find a way to keep Maynard in the pocket and not let him get out in the open field and Don't miss tackles.
Yeah, don't give up any cheap yards. Don't give up the cheap yards. Don't let him get 15, 20 yards on a busted play because of an assignment error.
Yeah, you get him in the backfield, keep him there. Don't let him cross that line of scrimmage and make plays downfield.
It's like a fundamental game, right? Such a fundamental game.
Yeah, make him one-dimensional. He'll make mistakes downfield. I like Chris Young, another one of my boys.
Yeah,
big
you've been talking about him since the summer.
Yeah, to have another great
He's been
game.
kicking some
Yeah,
butt.
exactly. And you know what? It's great. He had another 2.5 tackles against Utah. Great stat here. He's got 8.5 tackles for loss in the season.
Mm-hmm.
That's fourth in the that's tied for fourth in the nation. ASU's leader last year, Oliver Aaron, only had 8 all season. He's already surpassed that. So this fast attacking defense is allowing CY to really thrive, and I like him to get after Zach Maynard in this game, have a few more tackles for loss.
How do our receivers match up?
Yeah,
with
and
their
exactly.
secondary?
That's another thing too. This is probably the biggest test thus far for ASU secondary. They have not faced a receiver with the caliber of Keenan Allen. He's he just need to keep. They'll need to keep him contained because he's probably Cal's strongest offensive weapon. He's got a great rapport with his brother Zach Maynard, and he looks for him. He's the primary on a lot of the plays that they run. So Osan Irbor, Deveron Carr, even DeAndre Lewis,
even Alden Darby and Keelan Johnson on pass support. And Keelan Johnson's playing his best football that I've ever seen him play.
Oh yeah,
he is kicking some serious butt at that safety
interception
spot.
that he had was a great play. It was a great play. So
yes, sir.
Yeah. So the secondary is really gonna have to bring their A game and be on point because Keenan Allen can torch you in a hurry, much like he did last year against ASU.
So definitely a big game for ASU this Saturday. Up and down the roster, you could see big matchups and very important matchups that are happening between the O-line, the D-line, and of course our secondary, their linebackers. I mean, it's to me it's one of those games where it can make or break a season, in my opinion.
Very true. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are calling this ASU's most important game, and with all the storylines, their terrible road record over. I think they're like 5-18 over the last
it's
23.
abysmal. Yeah.
They're last time they won in
I was in the
Berkeley.
NFL the last time they won in
exactly.
Berkeley.
The Clinton administration was the last time they won in Berkeley.
Before they I can't even think of it right now. When they tried to get him out of the presidency, when they not indicted him, when
impeached.
you impeach a president, that's what it's called.
Anyway, but I mean, this is a big time game for ASU because they've got to go up to Berkeley, and that crowd at Strawberry Canyon is a little bit hostile, but they've got to go out there and really contain those playmakers and make plays themselves. Right there. That's it. I mean, they can do that. I see no reason they can't win this game.
All right, so that's going to do it for our segment of key matchups as far as Cal's offense and ASU's defense. Don't go away. When we come back, we're going to be previewing the ASU offense and how they match up against the Cal defense. Of course, we're going to be getting into heroes and zeros, good, bad, and the ugly. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Of course, you're on the line. I'm your host, Juan Roque, with my brother, my partner in crime, the Rhino Ryan Knowles, and I'm previewing the Cal defense that ASU's offense is going to be facing up in Berkeley, like you said, in the Strawberry Canyon right now.
That's right.
I know you love to use that term, strawberry, the Strawberry Canyon.
That's
not a very nice place.
That's
not a very
where
nice place for
Stadium is.
absolutely not a very nice place for the ASU offense. And a lot of things have been
the whole team,
50 to 17 in 2010.
Yeah, they've had some problems against Cal.
Oh, man.
First of all, they haven't beat them period since 2007. Which is a long enough time as it is, but have not beaten.
That was a come from behind victory at
them,
home.
Yeah, they have not beaten them at California Memorial Stadium since 1997, as we talked about in the last couple segments. So this is a big game for them. I feel like a lot of people calling this the most important game of the season. It is, but I feel like ASU can really thrive against this Cal defense.
Right.
I see a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, the Cal defense is a legitimate 3-4. They have 3 down linemen. They have 4 linebackers, and then looking at the defensive line. The premier player they got is defensive end, DeAndre Coleman. Mm-hmm. DeAndre Coleman is a big guy. He has made 1.5 sacks. He has 20 tackles, 2.5 for loss. Is not a guy who's getting a lot of stats as far as filling up the sheet right now, but he's a guy that could be very formal, right?
Yeah.
For him to be able to get this type of production, lining up head up over the tackle with really not in a 5 technique or a wide technique to allow him to use his speed, he's very nimble. And I saw a lot of film on this guy. This is a guy that's going to need to be accounted for every single snap because just very much like what happened with Sheldon Richardson up in Mizzou. This is a guy that if he gets out of control on you, he can disrupt your offense big time right now.
That defensive end from Mizzou too was in the backfield quite a bit.
Coney Ely. Yeah, absolutely.
So, but I mean, this is a very pedestrian defense, and that's the term I use.
Talk about what have you seen out of these guys,
well,
right?
I mean,
what's standing out to you or not standing out to you?
First of all, they're 87th in the nation in total defense, 58th in sacks. They lost 5 starters from last year, including Michael Kendricks, who was a big playmaker for them at linebacker.
Got drafted to the NFL.
He is starting for the Eagles right now. That's right. And they're also allowing 430 yards of total offensive game, 31 points per game they're giving up, and they're allowing 46% conversion on third down. those are numbers that I mean I really like if I'm ASU's offense.
So those are usually 0-4 numbers,
exactly.
not 2-2 numbers.
Well, yeah, and they're 1-3.
1-3, excuse me.
3 too. So and their you talk about their linebackers. I mean, 3 of their 4 starters are either freshmen or sophomores, and inside linebacker Robert Mullins is the anchor. And he's got 31. Leads the team in 31 tackles. I'm sorry, second on the team in 31 tackles, 2 tackles for loss. And then of course they got the talented. Let's keep the condom jokes to a minimum. Barebacker, Chris McCain, 19 tackles, 2.5 for loss. And then their sacks leader, linebacker J.P. Hurl, is not even a
he's not even a starter.
He's not even a full-time starter. He's got 2.5 sacks and an interception. But he's only started really 1 game this year. He's a situational guy, probably I would assume a third down guy. And then you get into the DBs and the cornerbacks, Mark Anthony, Steve Williams, have combined for 53 tackles, 6 tackles for loss. They can get out and play a little bit, but they've also been prone to giving up a big play. Like I said, giving up over 400 yards of total offense a game. It's definitely something that's got to get shored up. I mean, they've got a couple interceptions between them, and then of course it's their safety Josh Hill, is a guy they love to bring up into the box and move him around quite a bit. He's pretty dynamic. He's a team of 32 tackles as well as a forced fumble. So I mean, they got some nice players, right, but they're very young. Like I said, they lost a lot of starters from last year, some key players, linebackers.
Well, I noticed on I noticed their outside linebackers.
So.
Brennan Scarlett, he's a motor guy.
Yep.
Not the most athletic guy, but he does get upfield. He does go into the second and third move on the pass rush. He's already batted down a pass, so he can jump up into the air as well and get that ball out when the quarterback releases it.
Yeah, but he's a guy who's going to.
But he's not going to impress you with how he looks. He's 6'4", 255, kind of a lanky guy.
Yeah.
But I think this is a great opportunity for a guy like Bryce Schwab to just maul this guy because you're going to be matched up with him on pass protection.
Yeah,
and Chris McCain, the other outside linebacker, he's had 19 tackles and half a sack. So not guys that fill up the stat sheet, right? Like you said, they are giving up big plays. They are doing things not the way they did last season with that defense. So it's going to be interesting to just see which Cal team shows up against this ASU offense.
The X factor in this to me is
they're at home.
Well, that and they're also their defensive coordinator, Clancy Pendergast, former Cardinals defensive coordinator, knows how to coach up players. So I mean, this could also be a statement game for them.
So
this but this is a dangerous time for them. So we'll see what happens.
All right, so that's going to do it for this segment, folks, and previewing the Cal defense versus the ASU offense. And when we come back, don't go away. We're going to be talking about the key matchups from the ASU offense on this Bear defense. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You are on the line with Juan Roque and my partner in crime, the Rhino Ryan Knowles, and in previewing the key matchups, Rhino, between ASU and Cal as far as ASU's offense and Cal's defense. And looking at this team, like you said, it's a defense that's struggling. It's a defense that's not really impressive or overly dominating. But there are some matchups that I think are going to be big. And to me, one of the biggest matchups is going to be Evan Finkenberg against DeAndre Coleman. Because, again, Coney Ely got into the backfield a lot against Mizzou. Finkenberg is one of those guys that can definitely be an all-star type player. But this is a matchup now that he's going to have to show up and he's going to have a great game in order to start building that reputation as an all-conference contender.
Yeah, definitely. And, I mean, this is definitely a game that ASU, I feel like, can control the line of scrimmage.
Absolutely.
They're going to need.
And it starts with this guy.
Yeah, they're
got to control that guy.
They're going to need to open up some holes for that running game. This is a game I feel like they can really establish the run.
Absolutely, and they haven't been able to do that yet.
Not quite.
I mean, other than DJ Foster breaking his big runs, and I mean, he's going to be a phenomenal player. Mm-hmm. But it's been very pedestrian right now. We're talking under 3 yards a carry, and that needs to improve. When you go on the road, you got to run the football.
Yeah, exactly. And for Todd Graham preached wanting to run the ball more and being able to control the clock and establish that dominance on the ground. It just hasn't been there just yet. I mean, they've been able to pull off some good runs. They've been able to, get a couple here and there, but nothing to the point where they've been really dominant and been able to establish that attitude and that that mentality that I feel like Graham really wants to instill. Just hasn't been there yet. Maybe this is the game they finally break out.
Hopefully, and another key matchup that I'm thinking and looking at this game is Cody Kabensky on the guards, Andrew Sampson and Jamil Douglas. They got to be able to identify the blitz in that 3-4. They got the zone blitz scheme. They're going to have to be able to check off slide protection out to like Scarlett, to Brennan Scarlett, to the other outside linebacker. They're going to have to be able to identify.
McCain.
Yeah, they got to identify when they're in those blitz looks. So this is a game where I feel that the interior of the line really has to just shore it up. They can't allow any cheap shots on Taylor Kelly.
Yeah,
they can't.
And Kabensky, I mean, was hurt in that game against Utah. I mean, Mo Latu played most of the second half.
Right.
Andrew Sampson didn't have his best game either. It called for a couple false starts.
Right.
So, I mean, this definitely, I think, is a bounce-back game for that offensive line.
Right, and looking at your key matchups, Rhino, what's standing out to you? What do you think is going to be important in this game?
First and foremost, I'd like to see ASU's wide receivers really bounce back and have another quality game. They probably had their best game of the year against Utah. I talked about Rashad Ross before. Kevin Ozier's another guy. I want to see have another strong game.
Right.
They had some drops against Mizzou. Were able to really bounce back and be effective against Utah. And Cal's really has I keep using this term with Utah's defense, but they have a pedestrian secondary. And I like him. I like Rashad Ross had a big game against. He had kind of a breakout game against Cal last year in Tempe. I like him to have another big game.
Right, you specifically pointed him out, saying that's a guy in 2012 that we need to be paying attention to.
I feel like he could be a number one receiver in this offense. He's fast enough. He can get he can stretch the field extremely well on that deep ball, and I really like what he brings to the table. And he had a very solid game against Utah last week, and I'd like him to have another good one this week. Finally, Cameron Marshall against Cal's front seven. I talked about wanting to establish the run.
Right, got to get him going. Got to get him going this game.
I feel like he had his best game against Utah. I mean, maybe didn't get the yards, but he was able to. He went out. He was effective in the passing game. They got him more touches. That was the big thing, and that was something that Todd Graham had talked about, was wanting to get him some more touches. So I feel like if he can do that and find some holes against the Bears, ASU should have no problem putting points up on the board.
All right, so those are our key matchups for the ASU offense versus the Cal defense. What are your matchups? You're always welcome to join the conversation, of course, on our Facebook page. Let us know what's standing out to you in looking at this game Saturday. And that's going to do it for this segment, folks. Don't go away. When we come back, of course, we're going to be talking about keys to victory. Rhino, Juan, we're both going to be given what our perspective is. Don't go away. We'll be right back.